All right, I want to welcome everybody to this morning's committee meeting. Anne Marie, we're glad you're back. For those of you that come here on a weekly basis to hear the committee meeting, you would have noticed that she was not here last week, and she didn't let me know, and I was brokenhearted, and so
sorry.
I've
informed him I will not be at the first meeting back after the recess.
Okay,
taking my daughter to kindergarten.
Okay, that's okay. Let's just give me advance notice so I can be prepared. Are we going to have Mark fill in?
That's the plan, right, Mark?
Well, he didn't do too badly. Yeah. I told him he could come back. Mr. Reyes, you weren't here.
You were gentle.
I wasn't. And we had a new, a different city attorney. I mean, everybody to the right was
They let you
new.
down.
So they were on pins and needles because they know I'm a tyrant, okay? All right, so we do not have a quorum as of yet, but I do have my dear friend Ed Reyes is here, so we will start. We have several items that will be on the consent calendar. Mr. City Attorney, what we will do, since we do not have a quorum, these actions will temporarily be considered a communique from the chair. Once I get another member here, then we'll really start taking care of business. But in the interest of time, let's get started. And I mean, you've been gone for a week. You haven't lost your touch? Are you ready? Are you sure?
I'm ready.
Do we want to do a practice one?
No. We'll just move forward.
All right, Anne Marie. All right, then
If I stumble, I apologize.
we'll start slowly.
Okay.
Item 3.
I'm ready. Okay, item 3. CRA report and CAO2 report relative to a contract amendment with SRO Housing Corporation for the continued programming, operation, maintenance, and administration of emergency, transitional, and permanent housing developments, services, and capital reserves in the city center and central industrial redevelopment project areas. The amendment is for continued funding in an additional amount not to exceed $750,000 and to extend the term from April 1st, 2010 to June 30th, 2011.
You still got it. Okay, so on item 3, we'll adopt the CAO report. That brings us to item 4. And I also understand there's an amendment on that item. So you're going to read it into the record or
Sure.
whatever's necessary. Okay, item 4.
Item 4, CRA and CAO reports relative to authority to execute agreements for the rehabilitation and expansion of a manufacturing site at 6800 Avalon Boulevard in the Council District 9 corridors south of the Santa Monica Freeway Recovery Redevelopment Project area. And the amendment is, I would like to make a motion approving the use of $500,000 of FY 2010-11 AB 1290 funds from the Council District 9 corridors south of the Santa Monica Freeway Redevelopment Project area for construction and pre-development costs associated with the Avalon Park Plaza project, and instruct the CRA to essentially amend their budget and transfer the AB 1290 funds from the project area to the city to be dispersed directly to the developer Avalon Park Plaza, and additionally allocate CDBG funds from the neighborhood facility repairs from various accounts to fund the remaining gap on the project, and instruct CDD to execute the contract. And then finally, there's an instruction to the controller to make the necessary technical corrections. And this has been provided to the clerk.
Okay, then on that item, we'll adopt the CAO report as amended. That brings us to item 5.
CRA report and joint resolution and CLA report relative to the transfer of $8,000 of AB 1290 funds to the Department of General Services to implement a tree planting project on North Main Street in and adjacent to the Adelante Eastside Redevelopment Project area, Eastside Region.
Okay, Mr. Reyes has a quick question on that item.
On 5, should it be District 14 and District 1?
That should, yes, it should actually be Districts 1 and 14, yes.
Just for the record, I want to make sure that's in there.
Okay, yes,
thanks.
that's correct.
All right.
Okay, then on item 5, we'll adopt the CLA report and make sure that there's language that indicates what Mr. Reyes brought up. Item 6.
Item 6, motion Wesson Garcetti Hahn relative to reprogramming Community Development Block Grant American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 ARA funds from E-Cullet Recycling Materials, the Villas at Gower, LA Prop to Lancet Industrial Park, Hollywood Beautification, Boyle Heights Neighborhood City Hall, Chicago Building, Public Infrastructure Improvements, Community Development Department Administration, and CAO Controller ARA Oversight.
So whose motion is that?
That would be members Wesson Garcetti Hahn.
So what do you think we ought to do with that?
Oh, we should approve it forthwith.
Okay, well then on item 6, we'll adopt that motion. That brings us to item 7.
Item 7, motion Krikorian Labange relative to a public hearing in accordance with the Tax, Equity, and Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1982 bond issuance for an amount not to exceed $30 million for the Campbell Hall Episcopal Educational Facilities at 4533 Laurel Canyon Boulevard.
Krikorian, huh?
It's not Wesson.
I got to think on that. No, on that item, we'll adopt the motion as well. That brings us to item 8.
Okay. Item 8, motion Krikorian for Cardenas.
Oh, wait a minute now.
Correct. Relative to acceptance of grant funding from the U.S. Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration, EDA, for the Sun Valley EDA Public Improvement Projects.
Okay, we'll adopt that motion as well. Item 9.
9, motion Wesson Reyes.
About time.
Definitely. There you go.
About time.
Relative to reprogramming Community Development Block Grant funds from the Mercy Jefferson Park Housing Project to the Pico Hauser Retail Plaza Project.
Okay. Then we'll adopt that motion as well. Mr. City Attorney, again, all of these actions at this time will be deemed communiques from the chair. We've got one public or general public comment card. So I would like to ask Mr. Richard Zarate to come forward. Good morning, sir, and welcome to our committee.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Richard Zarate, and I'm representing Hermandad Mexicana in Panorama City. I'm the president of a committee called Save Our Homes. About a month ago, we obtained we were trying to obtain an interview with the Honorable Richard Alarcon, but that appointment wasn't, it did go through because he wasn't available then, but we met with his assistant, Mr. Saeed Ali.
Yes, Saeed.
Yes. At that time, I really wanted to address this issue in front of Mr. Alarcon, but he's not here today. So anyway, I just want this to go on record, you know. And the purpose of me coming over here is to we're trying to get foreclosures because we're representing about 100 people, and some of those people have been kicked out of their homes and are losing their homes in the middle of the night, kids and everything, and it's a shame, you know. You know, the foreclosure thing is quite complex, you know. And at that time, when we went with Mr. Saeed Ali about a month ago, he indicated that the city had funds for legal representation for us, and we haven't heard from him and Mr. Alarcon. So I was hoping this morning I address this issue to Mr. Alarcon. Like I said before, he's not here, but
well, let me tell you what I will do. I will speak with Mr. Alarcon myself, and Saeed, indicate that you were here today, request that they get in touch with you. They have worked very hard on this entire foreclosure issue. So I'm pretty sure that he will respond to you, but I will indicate that you came all the way here from Panorama City in hopes of seeing him, and I think that if you give me, is this number good?
yes, it is. It's 818.
818? Yeah, okay. Then what I'll do is, Andrew, make sure we take a copy of this, and I want to give it, if Richard's not in today, I'll give it to Saeed. But anyway, sir, thank you. You're welcome. Anytime you want to come, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a nice day.
You too. We've just been joined by Councilmember Jan Perry. So, Mr. City Attorney, we do have a quorum. Ms. Perry, we've already acted on items 3 through 9. At this point, their communications from the chair. If you don't have concerns with those, we can make it a recommendation from the committee. Okay, so with that said, those items, Mr. City Attorney, will be deemed approved. Okay, that brings us to, did we get, they're both here? So if you could read, let's take items 1 and 2 together.
Items 1 and 2 are communications from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Ms. Raymond Methoda and Ms. Lucelia K. Hooper to the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles for terms ending June 6, 2012.
Come on down. Have a seat.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to both of you. I guess the way we should do this, these are reappointments and not appointments, so now you're seasoned veterans. So you may want to tell us what you hope to do in the future, and then if there are questions from the committee, we'll ask them. So we'll start off with you.
Great. Thank you very much, Chairperson. My name is Ray Methoda, and as you mentioned, I've been on the commission now for about 4 years. It's been both my pleasure and privilege to be a part of this, part of the governance of this agency, which is the second largest public housing authority across the nation, and either owns or administers about 55,000 units of subsidized housing, serving largely families below 50 or 60% AMI. The primary focus, I would say, of the first 4 years that I've been a part of this organization has really been on what I would say turning around the core operations of the agency, turning it from being a relatively unhealthy agency, which is what I would characterize it as when I joined about 4 years ago, to what I would say being a relatively healthy and strong agency today. My primary focus, I'm one of the individuals who believes we have a historic opportunity that we haven't had for many decades now, over the next few years, to try to expand affordable rental housing serving the lowest members of our community, where there is an immense and acute unmet need. So my primary focus and interest in staying on for a few more years, frankly, is to participate in a significant manner in making a dent in that issue to see if we can't make a big difference in preserving and expanding affordable housing in this city of Los Angeles. And I am involved in those efforts, both here as well as trying to talk to folks in D.C., because as you all know, it boils down to where the funding is going to come from. I do believe we have a huge opportunity there, particularly with single-family housing related to the foreclosure crisis that we're talking about.
Good morning. And I would just like to say thank you for letting me be a part of the City of Los Angeles Housing Authority. And it has been a learning experience for me. And I've learned a lot, and I'm a part of the Jordan Down redevelopment program. And I think that's going to be a big help for South Central Los Angeles and for the Watts area community also. And I just was hoping that that could have been Nicholson Gardens getting ready to be demolished like that. But I know sooner or later it will. And my concern is with the residents. I work with the residents in the public housing and talk to them about, you know, things that they don't really understand, and they'll be glad to hear. And I have been working with Ray, and it's been a pleasure. And I enjoy what I do as a commissioner. It took me a while at first, but now I'm full blown. I can go now.
All right.
And I brought my 2 sons this morning.
I was getting ready to ask who those 2 scallywags were.
Oh, those 2 scallywags are my sons.
Yeah, well, I know one of them is one of the best basketball coaches that I've seen in working with young men that have troubled past. He has won the league that I sponsor. One of his teams from Nickerson has won, 2 out of 4 championships. He won two out of 4. But we clipped him last year. My district got him last year. But no, it's a pleasure to see you again, and to see both of them was just a good surprise for me, because I hadn't seen them in a while. So I personally just applaud both of you. And is it today, Andrew? Yeah, it will be. I would believe that this committee would recommend that both of you be reappointed, but I'm going to turn it over to, I think Mr. Reyes may have a question or two.
First, I want to thank you for your dedication, commitment. Your passion is very real and obvious in the way you present yourselves, and I thank you for that. A couple of years ago, I believe, I went before the board and we spoke of opportunities, and my focus was the Mead Housing development site. And you're right, about 4 or 5 years ago, it was fairly disastrous what's going on, but we've seen a tremendous change in accountability. And for that, I thank you, because now the residents are living a much more comfortable quality of life. But I've always been focused on decentralizing poverty and how we look at how we reach that level of balance. By concentrating poverty, it helps no one, in my mind. And we've seen it spurred generations of a gang culture that has been very punitive, especially in certain parts of our city. That being said, in looking at opportunities, has there been much discussion at the commission, at your level, in terms of how we decentralize and give the opportunities that we were sharing in looking at the Water and Power property, at the river corridor, the whole Arroyo Seco specific plan, the potential of the stimulation of a clean tech corridor? I mean, has that discussion, is there any traction at your level, at the board level with HOCLA?
I would say, Councilman, of course, I remember you visiting with us and everything you said. And I agree strongly with what you just said around deconcentration of poverty, as well as so expanding affordable housing, affordable rental housing in a way that does deconcentrate it, and frankly even doing more to push and pull people out of the cycle of needing multi-generational government support, which is another core focus that I would tell you I don't believe housing authorities had in the past, and that this housing authority has significantly now going forward. We are having significant discussions about exactly what you said around some of the issues that you brought up, both around the William Mead corridor, as well as generally around what do we do in light of what's happened with the housing crisis and, the issues with the tax credit market, which have been significant. What can we do? What can we achieve? As you know, Jordan Downs is a key focus of the agency, but at the same time, we don't want to lose sight of the fact that we do serve the whole city of Los Angeles. And as we think about the broader picture here over the next 10 or 20 years, we want to have a more broad-based development plan that addresses more than just that. So we are very much in the process of actually doing exactly that, revisiting what our numbers are. What do we think we can achieve in light of where we are today? And what are some of the more creative approaches we might be able to apply to generate funding or to find new sources of funding to try and do more, despite where we stand. So I don't have anything specific for you to say in terms of tangibly, this is what we're going to do, but we are very much struggling with those issues. We are very much discussing those issues, not only amongst ourselves, but with folks at, the White House and Treasury and in D.C. and HUD, because these are not problems that are unique just to us. They are very much problems that are common to various key urban areas around the country,
Exactly.
and that fundamentally systematic new solutions have to come up to be able to address that. And I think the deconcentration point is both around the redevelopment of existing housing authorities as well as exploring whether single-family homes can be the new form of rental housing, or at least a significant chunk of affordable rental housing as we move forward, because as you know, that would automatically deconcentrate poverty.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. One last point, the notion of how you capture the value of your airspace. I mean, a lot of the developments I feel are in very strategic place, and the cardinal rule in real estate is location 3 times, location, 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 but I don't see us being that opportunistic with our air rights and how we look at how we transfer those floor area ratios, and I'm hoping that in the near future we can have that type of discussion and And I'm working furiously because I have 3 years left. And I know how quick the city can be, and I'm being a little facetious here, but it takes time for things to move. And so I'm hoping we can get more traction and see quicker results and how we can get some of these milestones in place and actually achieve certain goals. So I look forward to working with you and congratulate you and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
We've been joined by Councilmember Tony Cardenas. Is there any other questions? Okay, then, without objection, we will forward the recommendation that you be reappointed. Thank you again for your service, and we'll see you a little later in the council chambers.
Thanks very much. Thank you for your feedback.
All right, we have a request from Mr. Cardenas to reconsider item 8. I think he has a question or two and wants to make a statement about that. So if we can reconsider item 8, and if you could reread it.
Sure. Motion Krikorian for Cardenas, Koretz, relative to acceptance of grant funding from the U.S. Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration, EDA, for the Sun Valley EDA Public Improvements Project.
Okay, so whoever's here on that, oh, I hope they didn't leave.
No, they're here.
Okay,
Here.
please come forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Uh-huh.
Mr. Chairman. I'll make this brief. First of all, I'd like to thank all of the staff that were involved in preparing this proposal, and it seems to have been successful. And I'd also like to thank the Assemblyman Felipe Fuentes' office for their assistance and also for them encouraging us to even engage in this process, which was very, very quick. It was actually initiated right around the time where a lot of vacation time was happening around the holidays, and people came in on their holiday time. Some people did. Above and beyond the call of duty. They put this together very, very quickly, but obviously haste was not a problem here because it was actually acceptable by the federal government to the point where we're here today, hopefully accepting the fact that they're going to engage and invest over $3 million into our community. So thank you very much for all of your help and all of your support to everybody involved. In addition to that, I'd like to ask a couple of questions about how the meetings are going, will be conducted. I've asked that there be an oversight committee established of all the designated departments, all the moving parts that it's going to take to get this project actually into the ground. How do you feel about that coming together? Everybody seemed to be ready and willing to cooperate?
That's correct, Councilman. I've actually met with our technical departments this morning, and we're trying to initiate that process. Also spoke with some of the department heads of the city early this morning as well in the audience, and they're aware of this as well, that this is coming down the line. Additionally to that, we're also moving forward on trying to procure an RFP for some engineering services so that we can get into the design stage immediately.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that, and I hope and expect that everything will go pretty well. Unfortunately, there are a lot of departments that don't have much money to work with, so the fact that we have some money for them to utilize and put into the ground it's a good thing. Hopefully, they're excited about that. Also, it's my understanding that the federal grant programs require the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, otherwise known as CEDS, to be current, and that the city engaged with a group a couple of years ago to update our CEDS. Where are we in that process?
Councilman, we've communicated with the local EDA office, and we are currently in the CRA East Valley trying to work through a contract to initiate the CEDS for the Sun Valley area.
Okay. So that's the status of this particular CEDS? Okay.
That's correct.
And how does it look for that process as you see it, for this particular CEDS to meet the timeline of this particular grant?
We feel very confident about that, Councilman. We are looking at probably about a 4 to 6 week time frame to complete the CEDS.
Okay. And when do we have this going to council?
Well, it's gotta, action has to take place before the 6th.
By August 6th.
Yeah. So we'll,
So hopefully
Andrew's
we can
saying
have
Tuesday?
it next Tuesday.
What day is it?
That's already the 3rd of August. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that we're all aware of
We want to
the
make sure we
deadline.
have 10 votes for that.
Yeah.
Well, whenever we're in a hurry, I hope that means we got votes. All right.
Let's
so-
just make sure that we get it on. If Tuesday is the soonest we can put it on the agenda, let's just make sure that whatever has to happen, happens so that it's agendized.
Okay. Excellent. And also, when it comes to the SEDS, I'd like to make sure you keep my office apprised of the timing, et cetera, in case we need to engage or be helpful in any way, buying coffee or what have you for long meetings.
Sure, no problem.
Make sure we get it done. Okay.
Not a problem, Councilman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And again, it's a great job that everybody's been doing.
Thank you.
Okay, then,
Move to approve.
without objection, we'll adopt the motion on item 8. And I am glad, Mr. Cardenas, that you referenced the hard work and people coming in during the holiday season or what have you. I've got a project in the district that I'm fortunate enough to represent that it's at a rec center, Rancho Cienega Rec Center, and the architect that's dealing with the lights has been laid off, and he's still working. And they're trying to come up with some kind of way where we would have him work with the development people. But I mean, it is his desire to finish that project. So that's another example of city employees going above and beyond. And so anytime we can recognize them for that, I think it's appropriate. That brings us to item 10. Okay.
CDD report relative to Family Source System 6-month status report, October 1st, 2009 through March 31st, 2010.
Please come forward.
Good morning, Manny Chavez with the Community Development Department.
Good morning.
Liz Diaz with CDD.
What you have before you is a 6-month performance evaluation of our Family Source model. The new Family Source system was implemented back in October 1 of 2009 and represented a redesign of the former Human Services Delivery System within CDD. It was in response to the Controller's report that was issued back in 2008 related to the anti-gang strategy. Just yesterday, incidentally, the Controller did release their report, follow-up report on that initial Controller's report, and found that CDD had actually implemented 16 of the 20 recommendations that we were to address. In May of last year, we actually issued an RFP to solicit applications from organizations that were interested in serving as Family Source Centers. We did fund 16 nonprofits. There are also 5 city-managed Family Source Centers. The program was intended to start October 1 of 2009, with initial funding running for 6 months through March 31 of this year. Programs really became operational around January 1. We celebrated grand openings of all 21 sites between January 1 and March 31. Our goal for the program is to serve 50,000 individuals annually. In the first 6 months of this year, we actually had 15,000 individuals walk through the doors of our Family Source centers. So we're pleased with the volume of individuals that are coming through. We are still looking for the outcomes. We do have 2 outcome goals. One is increased family income, and the other is increased academic achievement. We're doing okay on the income goal. The academic achievement goal is lacking a little bit. We'll hopefully see some results when we look at June data. The second program year actually began April 1 and will continue through March 31 of this year. So the first full 12 months of the program we are in the midst of. We do propose to come back to you with a 6-month evaluation of the first 6 months of this new year in October. And then we've actually contracted with Cal State Northridge to conduct a complete evaluation of the Family Source model for the first 18 months, so looking at the first year and a half. We also have implemented a formal certification policy for the system, so all funded contractors will have to be certified by us based on performance criteria every year in order to be recommended for continued funding. So again, the annual performance evaluation plus the comprehensive 18-month evaluation conducted by Northridge will come back to you probably in April or May of next year. Some of the highlights of the system.
Why is there difficulty with the academic piece of that?
What is the difficulty with it?
Yeah, you said that was lacking.
Actually, it's the number of kids that we have actually enrolled. We've allowed the Family Source Centers to claim return to school a grade level progression, et cetera, to be allowable outcomes. And we think it's a matter of time. So it takes longer to get that outcome.
Okay.
So at least preliminarily, that's our thought on it. Obviously, we've had growing pains in the system, relationships between lead agencies and contractors, side issues, establishing procedures, but we're working through those, and we hope the evaluation results in the long run will address some of those. A couple of highlights. In the past, we never had a real system to really approach or address the shortage of folks applying for the EITC, or Earned Income Tax Credit. All of our 21 family source centers are now VITA sites. So they're either doing it themselves or they've contracted with an entity to
Really?
provide that service. And we actually had around 1,500 tax returns prepared this past year, generating $1.8 million in tax returns.
We leave so much money on the table where it
We do.
relates to that. I can remember when this was first brought to my attention, Mr. Cardenas and I were, I think he was in his second term, I was in my first term, and I know I had passed some legislation to try to do a better outreach program, and I was amazed when you looked statewide how much money was left on the table. And then when you go to L.A. County, and I was amazed at how much money, and then L.A. City. So it was anything that we can do to try, because people just don't know.
Right.
And so you're actually on site helping with that.
We are doing that, yes, and we certainly hope that we can exceed that 1.8 million 3 times in the forthcoming
Well,
tax season.
if that was all you did, it would be worth it, because
Yes.
the money families are just amazed, and depending on your earnings, and you could get back enough money to do some things of significance. I know Mr. Cardenas wanted to say something, and I think Mr. Reyes. But again, before I turn it over, that's good stuff.
Yes.
That's good stuff. Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you. On the note on the Earned Income Tax Credit program, if somebody is eligible for the Earned Income Tax Credit and they don't take advantage of it by April 15th, can they do something in effect like a 1040X and actually go back, and if they are qualified, can they still do it?
Yes, it's my understanding that they can do so.
Okay. Do we have an outreach for after April 15th?
I'm
You understand what
sorry.
I'm saying? What I'm saying is, I'm sure that the outreach is geared up toward tax season.
Correct.
Let us help you, let us teach you, let us show you that if you're eligible for this, you should take advantage of it. Now, after April 15th, everybody seems to go to sleep when they think about taxes until next year.
Right.
Do we have outreach beyond April 15th to encourage people to continue to apply in case they do qualify, so they can recapture that money?
It's not something we've actively promoted, but we should, because there is that tendency to target it during tax season. But it's also my understanding that you can get an advanced EITC, so you can get credit during the year on your paycheck if you qualify. So those are things that we need to look into.
Okay, well, then maybe what you ought to do is look at what the budget is, what the response rate is, how much you think you're still leaving out there as far as volume of individuals that could and should use our help, and then see if you can justify some way of budgeting and stringing it out in a way that you can actually do it beyond April 15th. One of the things we might want to do as well is do a very inexpensive, we have Channel 35 and we do have other outlets. What you might want to do is actually ask a family that actually took advantage of it and is very excited about it, and for them to actually help us with maybe a PSA and explain that I didn't know that I had this money eligible. They ended up giving me this money, and look at my check. They can blur it out or whatever. But you get the point. I think that visuals, especially with people, and we're probably dealing with a lot of people whose English is not their first language, so the visuals and just reminding them that somebody that looks just like them actually got X amount of dollars from the government. They didn't expect it, they didn't know, but by utilizing this service, they did it, and you can still do it. April 15th is gone. Nobody's talking about taxes anymore, but you can still do it.
We'll promote that.
I'm assuming we haven't gone that far, but if you can look into it, and then if it makes sense, perhaps you should engage in that as well. I have one more question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But wait, let me jump in on this point, because I thought, first of all, I didn't know that you could do it.
After April 15th.
So, I mean, that was a very good question. And then your suggestions were, I think, are excellent as well. But we do have the big boss here. You know, Richard, I really think you need to take what Mr. Carden has said to heart. And if I don't want to do this as a motion or anything, but what I would suggest that you do is that at your next staff meeting or whatever you call them, that you instruct your staff, who seems to be really up on this, to build into the program a component, because I just don't see that it would be a lot of cost to you to try to do this retroactively. I mean, so there should be not I will try. I think that we should work on some kind of a component where that's a definite thing. So I'd like to ask you as a friend to do that, and then maybe you could just report back, let Mr. Cardenas know what's happening, and let my office know what's happening as well. And I'm having a very senior moment right now. Who's the deputy mayor that oversees? Larry. Is that Larry? You should also have a discussion with Larry about the mayor's office engaging the major media and see if they can have I know we've had press conferences here and there, and the media seems to show it kind of, sort of, but maybe if the mayor's office were to engage them, that they could embrace some kind of a week program or something where they're constantly mentioning that, and again, couple it with Mr. Cardenas' suggestion to do something on Channel 35, but this idea of having just some regular guy or some regular lady and her kids come and saying, we did this and we got an extra $1,800 or what have you, and then when people look up and see that, you know, talk a little bit about, you know, this is what I do and such, and maybe this could be you as well, because that is real money.
Right.
I mean, it's not a gamble, it's not an investment, it is real money. So I think that this is something that you should really, I mean, if we can make a dent in that, we might be the model for other cities in the state of California. Mr. Cardenas, you had another question, and then Mr. Reyes. But I just wanted to do that right there before I forgot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also I mean, I actually did financial planning for a little while, and I had hundreds of clients, and I could just see it in their eyes that 9 out of 10 Americans don't realize that after April 15th, that's not like you're dead, it's over. No, the IRS is open 12 months out of the year, and you can retroactively correct anything, plus or minus on your taxes, and there's a whole entire process on that. And again, the problem is most Americans think that, okay, April 15th is gone, I got to wait till next year, that's over with. No, it's not. So I think that, like the chairman said, we probably would be a model, probably the only jurisdiction in the country that is actually going beyond April 15th and putting energy into reminding people that it's not over, that that money still belongs to you if you file. Okay?
It's a great idea. We'll figure it out, and we'll bring back a report to you to tell you what we think can be done.
Okay. And then how many customers have been successfully entered into the 1E app system? Where are we at on that?
To date, we have around 1,500 that have been entered into the system. We had growing pains with that as well. We've been entering clients since January. It takes on average about 45 minutes to enter all of the personal data to get the results. Most recently, we've actually entered into an agreement with the county to allow for the food stamps eligibility to be recognized by them electronically. So if an individual does qualify for food stamps, it'll be recognized by the county on the spot.
Okay. So the 1E app system is now fully functional?
It is fully functional. Our staff has been trained. All of the contractor staff has been trained. So we are up and running.
What was the break point that you could actually feel comfortable that we now have been up and running? When was that?
I'd say April 1. So we struggled through January, February, and March with training and just getting the system going. But really April, we got the whole thing rolled out.
Okay. So the number of entries is going to go up dramatically.
It should.
Going forward.
Yes, and our goal is actually for 10,000 individuals to be enrolled in the system this year.
All right. And also, I'd like to report back, progress report for our South Valley FSC.
Yes,
Okay?
sure.
Okay, before Mr. Reyes, Mr. Bimbo, why is Nino's here?
We have another item on your agenda.
But I want him to come up and sit. I want to look at your handsome face. Just come up here now, Nino, so I can see you. Just come on. There's a chair. Come on. Come on. I just want to make you turn red like I do on a regular basis. But Nino, I'm telling you, he has done some wonderful things on projects in my district. And if you guys need somebody that is creative and can think out of the box, you should have a discussion with Mr. Benjamin. Mr. Reyes.
Yeah. As I was looking at the target areas for FSC, and especially in the northeast and the east area, we talked about breaking out of silos and looking at how we leverage what little we have because we need to. And the phenomenon that I've been seeing just flourishing is the advancement of charter schools and the networks of charter schools in these FSC areas. There are so many families involved. These are families that are looking for alternatives from the public school because they're overcrowded, for all the things that we know that are hurting our public school system. But in the charter schools, you have a whole network, and they're looking for opportunities like this. They want to know how to engage, and there's a different level of how can I say this, initiative. Is there a way, and I know there's a lot on your plate already, but is there a way to look at how we can introduce or look at what FSC does? This example that Councilman Cardenas was speaking to and Chairman Wesson, are you looking at all in terms of how these other organizations are evolving around you, like the charter schools? Have you had that ability to kind of just assess that opportunity?
We have not as of yet, but we really recognize this as an evolving system, so we know it's going to change. And I think the capacity of the system is great, and the opportunities are great. So looking at charter schools is a logical thing to do, and we can definitely pursue that.
And they have flexibility. They essentially define their own parameters and how they move their curriculums, how they look at their academic goals, and how they achieve integration. A lot of it is dealing with first-generation folks learning English for the first time. These are immigrants. These are a whole range, a spectrum of people that I think would really it's not just a numbers game, but it's really dealing with how you take full advantage of what you have and really saturating these areas that are trying to figure it out. So if there is a way to get maybe a pamphlet, a summary of what you do, I can introduce them to the principals of the charter school and just, help you get to that point, because my office is always engaging them for one reason or another. And I just want to bring forth that whole network, because I think that is like the elephant in the room. These are a lot of families in these charter school systems.
We will do that. Sure.
Any more questions where it relates to this item? Okay, then I thank you guys for the very good discussion, and I want to just reinforce. I mean, it's a big win.
Oh, yeah.
In that earned income. It's a big win. I mean, it's a big win there. So anyway, without objection, we'll note and file CDD report. Again, thank you. That brings us to item 11.
Item 11, CRA, CDD, and CAO reports relative to agreements between 1, CRA and Auto Center LLC, and 2, CRA, BYD Motor Corp., and BYD Company to facilitate the lease transaction between BYD and Auto Center LLC to locate BYD's Los Angeles headquarters at 1800 South Figueroa Street.
Okay, well, this is very exciting, and I know Ms. Perry wants, I think has an amendment or a couple of other things to say.
Just a few things.
But now, again, I want everybody to look at Ninos in the back. Now, if you have to come back and sit down, I'm just curious as to why you didn't just stay there. So I just want to see, so when I asked for the staff to come forward, and I just told, which I am now, and I just told everybody how brilliant you were. Now, if you come back up here after, I don't know, Nina. Wait, is he coming back? All right. Oh, you back up.
Under the...
All righty, Miss Perry, it's yours.
Great, thank you very much. All right, I'm very pleased about this project, BYD coming to Los Angeles, and their decision to open their headquarters on the Figueroa Corridor on Automobile Row. And this will be a great asset for the area, and I want to commend the mayor's office for the work they have done to this point. I am concerned about a few precedent-setting items within the CRA report, and I want to start with the proposed exemption to the construction careers policy. It states in the report that it's unclear whether the policy applies to the project, and I understand that there is a compulsory square footage requirement, but I would like to raise that issue because the project does also include street improvements, which would probably not only exceed the compulsory square footage requirement, but put us well within range of that. So that's number one. And I think that the solution to that should be, if we can't make a clear finding on the city's construction careers policy requirement, that I would like to insert a requirement that there be best faith efforts for a local hire. That's number one. Number two, the policy is the project is receiving CDBG funds and is already subject to prevailing wage. So I think requiring a best faith effort on local hiring is really not too much to ask, because I think we have to have some vehicle through which we can allow the rehabilitation work to be done on this site to be completed with some participation by local people and opportunities for apprentices. So that's my first motion. Second motion is, I know that CDBG funds require at least 51% of the 46 new full-time equivalent jobs be made available to low and moderate income people through the city's workforce centers. So I would like to make a motion requesting that CDD insert into the CDBG contract a best faith effort clause that requires BYD to hire local residents for at least 30% of its workforce for the full-time equivalent jobs. And if CDD needs any suggestions on groups to reach out to or how to do that, I'd be happy to help, and I think Mr. Reyes would too, because this is basically in his front door also. PV Jobs, CRCD, and I'm sure Mr. Reyes Job Corps, just to name a few off the top of my head. Mr. Reyes, I'm sure, has a multitude of job readiness organizations, probably within throwing distance of 18th and Figueroa. According to the CDD report, BYD is contemplating locating assembly, distribution, and logistics facilities in Los Angeles. So I'd also like to make a motion to insert a clause into the CDBG contract that if BYD decides to pursue phases 2 and 3, that they be required to make the best effort to locate these facilities in Los Angeles. Next point, I want to make it clear that there will be someone monitoring BYD's hiring efforts, so that what I've just said is not just words, but that we actually create deliverables in our hiring. So I want to make a motion to require that CDD report back to this committee in 90 days on the hiring efforts for construction jobs, and in 1 year related to the permanent jobs. Then the next point I would like to make is a motion to ensure that in the event that CRA assumes the lease, that they must return to council for authorization before expending any general revenue funds. Lastly, I'd like to ask CRA, well, those are the ends of, that's the end of my motions, Mr. Chair, and then I have two more points.
CRA general purpose funds? Or are you referring to the general fund of the city of?
General revenue funds.
Of the CRA?
From the agency.
Yeah,
From the agency.
yes. Okay.
I second that.
Okay, no, my whole list of motions?
Yeah,
Okay.
second,
All right, okay,
second,
so I've got-
second.
Thank you. All right, now, the other point, last two points I want to make. I would love to have the redevelopment agency report back to this committee in 30 days to show us the universe of projects that have been treated in a similar fashion. So I want you to report back in 30 days on all other projects that have been provided a contingent liability and/or financial guarantee, and if they were exempted from existing CRA policies. Now, my last point, the reason that I have put in all these motions is because I've struggled for probably the last 6 years with the inconsistent behavior of the redevelopment agency's board members. And this, for me, highlights an unusual circumstance, number one, where a CRA board report was submitted by the chief operating officers. Board reports are usually generated by the project area staff. I would like to ask, or I will pass this on to Ms. Essel, instruct the CRA management to include the appropriate staff from the Council District 9 corridors project area to better coordinate efforts on Otto Row, Washington Boulevard, and the Figueroa corridor. And that is all I have to say, other than I look forward to seeing BYD locate on the Figueroa corridor, and I will vote on this report as amended, and I appreciate Mr. Cardenas's seconds on all my points that I've raised today.
Okay, before you, Mr. Reyes, Mr. Cardenas had some questions, I believe.
Okay, thank you. How many jobs are we documenting anticipated at this site? Temporary and permanent?
Mr. Chairman, the permanent jobs are expected to be 50 jobs initially, and at full occupancy, approximately 100 jobs.
Mm-hmm. And temporary jobs?
Construction jobs, we haven't calculated the construction jobs for the rehabilitation.
Okay. I was reading over and over and over your language on your report, and when it comes to CRA, LA policies, so my question to you is, apparently, 2 subject agreements do not require application of several CRA, LA policies. Why is that? How did that come about in this particular case? Yet, in most cases, they do apply.
Let me speak, if I may, to the construction careers policy. The construction careers policy, as adopted by our board and the city council, exempts projects that are with buildings less than 50,000 square feet. This project is 30,000 square feet. So this isn't a waiver of a policy. This is actually following the policy as adopted by the board and council. And that's going to speak to the other policies.
In preparation for this committee, we went back to the agreement with BYD and Auto Center and carefully looked at all of the CRA policies. The responsible contractor policy does apply. That's included in both agreements. Mr. Hollis just described there is an exemption specifically in the construction careers policy and in the PLA to exempt development projects of less than 50,000 square feet. Likewise, the Healthy Neighborhoods policy includes that same exemption. It does not apply to projects of less than 50,000 square feet. The prevailing wage policy of CRA applies to any agreement with the agency for the development of property, and then the policy goes on to describe what that means. And an agreement in which CRA agrees to subsidize or guarantee a rehabilitation loan to be made to a developer or owner by a lending institution is deemed to be an agreement with the agency for purposes of this policy. That's not, neither of the agreements that CRA proposes to enter into is an agreement to guarantee a rehabilitation loan to be made by a lending institution. Likewise, development of property means demolition, construction, rehabilitation, or other work of improvement to be performed on behalf of the owner or developer in accordance with the agreement with the agency. There's nothing in either of these agreements that addresses the development of this property. The agreements go to the lease of the property itself and not to physical construction. If there are any other specific questions about specific
So what you're
policies.
saying is that the participation of the CRA is tied only to the lease aspect of it, but not the construction, the bricks and mortar of the project?
That is correct. We are not providing any funds for construction. The public funds that are being provided for construction are being provided through the Community Development Department, and their policies will apply to this project for the construction.
It was my understanding when we were presented with the concept by the CRA and it was passed by this committee and by the council, that the threshold trigger was a dollar amount of involvement.
There are exceptions to that dollar amount based upon the size of the project in the policies that was adopted by the board and council.
So the dollar amount triggers if in fact that concurs with other aspects of the size of the project.
Yes, correct, Councilman. If the project is larger than 50,000 square feet and the dollar amount is hit, then the policy applies.
So basically what you're saying is it's an affirmative on both, and if it's one or the other, then it is not required.
That is correct. It's both of those. And I believe I wasn't with the agency when that policy was adopted, but I believe the logic behind it was there are certain projects you get to a certain size that the economies of scale are lost, such that imposing projects become a disproportionate burden on the small projects. And the council and board picked the 50,000 square feet as where that break point would be. So we are actually following the policies that were adopted by the board and council.
Now, Ms. Perry pointed out that the individuals with the CRA that prepared this or worked on it or ran point on this, who were those individuals again?
The project, the structuring of the agreement itself and following up on the documentation of the agreement was my responsibility and the responsibility of Mr. Wasserman. The CD9 team has been involved in this project with regard to working with the various city departments on the public improvement aspects of this project. And so we developed a team that would generate this project. The reason my name and Glenn's name is on this, on the report to our board, is that we were the responsible parties for assisting the city team in negotiating this transaction. And I felt it was important to let the board know who was responsible. I take responsibility for this project, so that's why my name was on it.
So you're responsible for this project, but not for many others?
I was responsible for the negotiation of our involvement in this project. That is correct.
Okay, so you actually took the lead on behalf of CRA when it came to the global aspects of it, the bigger picture aspects of it, of nailing down what the understandings of the projects was, et cetera, and that CD9 project staff actually just dealt in the little details of making sure the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted?
Their responsibilities are relative to making sure that the public improvements that are required under this project are done and following up on that aspect of the project.
Okay, so basically what I'm getting at is simply this. You took a personal interest in this project over and above what normally you take in a project, or you took a personal interest in this project just like a generic project, just like any other?
I take a personal interest in the project when I believe I can add value to that project. In the case of projects in the chair's district, I was brought in to assist in closing that transaction. That project went on for a number of years, and the local agency staff had the primary responsibility for the overall project. We were brought in, the agency was brought into this project at the very end of a long period of discussions between the city family and BYD and the property owner. So that this wasn't a typical agency.
All right, thank you. But this is what I'm getting at. And to Ms. Perry's frustration, and I know my frustration, this is what I'm getting at. What was it about this particular project? It's not 1,000 jobs. It's not 500 jobs. It's not even 300 jobs. The permanent jobs in this project are 50 or less at the inception, and it'll grow hopefully as this is a successful business. It's not the biggest project in the world, right? And at the same time, as you just pointed out, it's not even over 50,000 square feet. Again, by the job aspect and also by the physical nature of this project, it's not the biggest deal in the world. Your agency is huge. You have a lot of moving parts. You have a lot of proposals where people are saying, hey, we can bring 1,000 jobs, 500 jobs, 300 jobs. We'd like to build a project that's $60 million, $100 million, or what have you. You get approached many, many times, don't you, with that magnitude of projects? Do you or do you not?
Well, we get approached for a lot of projects. That's correct, Councilman.
You're not answering my question. Do you get approached by entities that say, I want to invest $50 million, $100 million into a project, et cetera, that magnitude? I'm talking about 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 permanent jobs. Do you get approached, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Often. Yes, you do. What was so special about this project that is less than 50,000 square feet, less than 50 permanent jobs in inception, that caused you to spend so much personal time on it?
Because I believe this is a strategic opportunity for the city of Los Angeles to attract a major corporate company, a growth company, a high-tech company, and they are starting small, but by working with them to create their U.S. headquarters here, we have a better chance of attracting their next level of investment in the United States. This is a strategic investment, and that's why I felt it was important that I get involved. I was at a meeting yesterday in Councilman Weezar's office for a project that potentially can retain over 300 jobs in the city of Los Angeles.
With a corporate headquarters?
Pardon?
With a corporate headquarters?
This is not a corporate headquarters.
Okay.
But it's it's a company, it's a business that's here now that is facing problems and they have to relocate. I attend a lot of meetings with a lot of projects. I felt this was a strategic investment by the city of Los Angeles with great upside potential. It was also, although it's small, it is a fairly complicated transaction.
So which elected official actually encouraged you to get personally involved?
I was asked by the mayor's office to work on this project.
That's exactly my point. That is exactly my point. There are other elected officials in this city that we are trying to bring business to our respective areas, and we lack that kind of attention. And it frustrates me to no end. I love the fact that when the mayor's office comes up with a wonderful, great idea, that you give it 100% of your attention, so much that you, the second in command of the department, gets personally involved. That is awesome. I applaud you on that. And I'm not being facetious. That's great. Like Ms. Perry said, regardless of her frustrations, at the same time, she would love to see this project happen. Bring it. But at the same time, the thing that frustrates many council members is this, that you do not get involved in certain projects, and I've never asked you to get personally involved in a project in my district. But what I have asked of you, and Ms. Essel, and of your department, is that you pay attention and that you empower your local workers within our districts to be empowered to actually move projects and actually do their job and actually respect the fact that people want to invest in our districts. That's the frustrating part. You did a great job on this one. The problem is, I believe that you're not empowering your staff at the local level when it doesn't come from the mayor's office. That's the part that frustrates me to no end. And we have example after example after example after example. And I apologize if none of my colleagues want to speak up and speak to that frustration, but I know I have that frustration.
Councilman, all I can say is that I am involved in projects in districts throughout the city of Los Angeles. I have always been involved in a project.
Thank you very much. I never said that you weren't. What I just said is this, that you are not empowering your local staff in the respective areas within the city of Los Angeles. You are not empowering them as much as you could or should. And they are, for some reason, feel either afraid or held back or what have you, when other good projects end up just languishing. And the frustrating part about a project that languishes is not so much the fact that it languishes. What happens is we have business person after business person after business person that walks away. And some business people have actually said, when we say, well, let's get CRA involved, they say, no, thank you. That's a kiss of death. I do not want them to get involved. So just be aware of that. I've told you this before privately, now I'm telling you it publicly, and I'm just letting you know, this is an example of our frustration.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and Mr. Reyes, but before Mr. Reyes speaks, and I'm sensitive to your frustration, Mr. Cardenas, but I feel compelled to say that when I asked for assistance, and the way the agency is now restructured, Mr. Hollis will come in. I view him more as a closer. With the partnership that we formed with CDD and CRA, I do have 2 projects that will be going on over, I mean, it's a capital improvement of over $250 million. And these projects would not have occurred if I didn't take advantage of Mr. Hollis's expertise coupled with CDD. So, and it wasn't even me that called him initially. It was at then my assistant chief deputy, and he responded to him. I did not call him initially. It was after that that I sat down with him, explained the importance of the projects, and then he got the team. And the team that works in my area, they have been very creative and empowered, and then we just brought him in because we needed to just, take another inch, and he was able to give us that inch. So I just wanted to say, on the other side, there are, again, I'm sensitive to you and any other member on the council, but I do want to say that in this case, it worked and worked well, and we have other projects in the pipeline that they will be working on that I truly believe will change the face of the Crenshaw corridor.
Then I modify my statement and say, either it's the mayor's office or the chairman of the housing committee.
There you go, there you go.
Mr. Reyes.
He's up, he's down, he's up. No, what I want to say is, there was a lot of work that Councilman Perry and I did back in the day when we were staff, and we did actually identify and structure feeder systems when LA Live was being built. And that feeder system has grown, it's strengthened, and if you look in your files, the labor force, job readiness programs, there's quite a few nonprofits, service providers that have a labor pool that I think would relish the opportunity that's being given by your hard work. So just want to throw that out there.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Perry.
This is not a referendum on anybody in management from the redevelopment agency, so let's not get sidetracked by that, because that's not the point, and that wasn't my point.
No, I don't think that.
No, but my point was to have the agency behave in a consistent manner.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. But I think that you should just share some good experiences coupled with the bad experience.
It's not a feel-good therapy session, because for me, this is about getting everybody's projects done, and it hasn't always been that way.
No, and I agree.
And, we got a history here, so.
I agree.
And then I also have a highly skilled staff, south of the Santa Monica Freeway, District 9, and redevelopment corridors, and I rely very heavily on staff recommendations, and I thought it was highly unusual that this project would manifest itself in this manner, and I don't.
No,
I'm glad Mr. Cardenas.
I agree.
That he asked, because oftentimes, when I ask questions like that, when I read about it in the paper later, that I'm just being mean or, something
well,
like
I
that.
didn't.
And while I am mean and I'm comfortable with that, I'm still going to ask the question.
No, and I didn't suggest that. I just said I think there should always be a balance, and that's what I tried to bring to this committee.
Okay.
You want to keep going? We can.
No, it's enough for now.
I mean, we can keep going. I think that we should move forward and adopt this report. And where it relates to Ms. Perry's motions, do we have to have motions, or can they be amendments to the report?
I would like to take the most conservative approach and make sure that they are locked in on that language, because I expect that after we leave here, that there will be an effort to undo what I asked for.
Then amendments to the report.
Mr. Chair, they can be additional recommendations for the committee report. So they are amendments to the report.
Let me ask the city attorney, what is the strongest way to make sure that they cannot be lobbied and taken out?
I don't know the answer to that, but you could, your vehicle can be a motion to amend the report, which I think is what you did.
Seconded.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so then, without objection, we will adopt the CAO report with the amendments, and thank you. Is there any more business before this committee?
No, sir.
Then this committee is adjourned.